Hello, good evening. We will wait for another 4 minutes and then we can start. So the next week I'll be traveling on the time of this class. So I may prepone the class around 2 hours before maybe. So I will mail NPTL so you will get the mail if they agree to do that. So otherwise, this is our second last class and I think we can start. Let me share my screen. So, welcome to the week 11 of Fundamentals of Additive Manufacturing. So, as this is week 11 and this is the second last week, and the next week will be our last week of this Fundamentals of Additive Manufacturing course. So, that's why I want to have a recap today and the next day also, means the next class also, because after that I'm not taking any extra class. So whatever doubt you have regarding this topic, regarding this course, you can ask me today or next day, or if you are watching this video on YouTube, then you can drop it in the comment section, your doubts. And let's start with the recap from last few weeks. So here we are talking about additive manufacturing, which is a layer by layer material deposition process. We didn't talk about whether it's polymer additive or metal additive, non-metallic, ferrous, non-ferrous, not like that, but rather than that, we have talked more about different classifications of additive manufacturing. So, according to ASTM standard, we have seven state of the art additive manufacturing classification. But here, mostly in this lecture series, we got to know about different classification in terms of its setup. So basically, how what is the raw material, whether it's a wire or whether it's powder, what is the energy source, whether it's an arc or whether it's a laser, whether it's an electron beam, and then is it a liquid additive manufacturing or a solid additive manufacturing? If it's liquid, then we had VAT photopolymerization, material jetting, and then when we started talking about solid state, like the raw material is in solid state, then we started with the binder jetting, then we had sheet lamination process, then we had WAM, or it's better to call it as arc DD, because it comes under the state of the art of directed energy deposition. Then we got to know about powder bed fusion. So basically, today we will be talking about powder bed fusion, and the last class we have talked about RDD, like wire DD and powder DD. So in case of wire DD, the wire is coming from the spool. So material extrusion is another process of additive manufacturing where it uses wire as a raw material, and which uses metal and polymer as well, like both type of material. Then we have discussed about the powder delivery system. For lasers, we got to know about the basics of laser, the classification of laser, then the delivery components of laser, how the laser can get focused onto the build plate, how they can move over the build plate very rapidly, like 3D scanners or galvo scanners or f theta lens, telecentric lens, all those arrangement of optics in case of lasers. Then we have discussed about powder delivery system, and now we are going to talk about powder bed fusion, where it uses powder as a raw material, but laser beam or electron beam can be used as an energy source. But again, uh, in DD, we have talked about powder delivery system. But in case of PBF, we will be talking about how the powder will be spread, because the basics of the state of the art of powder bed fusion is there will be a bed, there will be another container. So this will contain the powder. This can be in either side. So I'm just drawing this setup. There can be a bean or collector. So this is a recoater. Recoater will spread each layer of powder. This is one layer of powder, which the recoater will spread, and then the excess powder it will deposit over the bean or collector. And this is how the powder is spread, and then the laser comes from top and it moves onto the build plate, and it solidifies the part, the powders, or melts the powder wherever it is needed, and then that melted track of powder gets solidified by its own because of the very high heat gradient, which is known as cooling rate. So the scanning speed is very high, but the temperature gradient is very high as well. So that's why the cooling rate is also very high. So this is the basic state of the art of powder bed fusion. Now here the most critical part is the recoating part, because it's very critical to spread one layer of powder where the layer thickness relies on 30 micron, 20 micron, or 10 micron. So just imagine you're spreading 20 micron powder layer over a flat metal plate, how much difficult it is. So that's why this powder spreading technique is very crucial and very critical as well, because first thing is that you have to spread one layer of 30 micron powder over the bill plate, and that also uniformly you have to spread over the bill plate. So that's why this recoating technique is very critical, and this is why we use different types of recoaters in case of FPVF. So people have tried coating, spreading the powder with different kinds of recoater. Like it can be blade recoater. Let me just write down. So we are now talking about recoater, but before that, I want to know that whether you have any doubt or not. If you have any doubt from the week 11 lecture videos you can ask. So first question is, did you watch the video? No? Okay. So you didn't watch the videos, then fine, you don't know what is there. So it's better then I'll go with I have to go through. Okay, fine. Then I will just give you a brief about the lectures and the topic that will be covered in week 11 for you. And then I'll be discussing about the previous year week 11 questions so that it will be easy for you to attempt this year quiz question because it's almost similar. Okay, so so by this point, I think you know what is powder bed fusion, and now let's understand few things. So today we will be talking about first the recoating system. Then I'll be talking about the material aspect, like whether we are using polymer or metal and how polymer will be used, how metal will be used. Because under powder bed fusion, there are two processes: selective laser sintering and selective laser melting. What are the difference between these two processes? I'll be talking about. And lastly, an overview of the works that are going on in research on powder bed fusion process. Okay. So first is the recoating system. So recoater, as in recoater, that will have a big what should you call it? A big arrangement will be there for the recoater. So there will be screws, nut, bolt, and different attaching elements. And this is the blade. So this blade is like this. Okay, so there will be an edge. This blade will look like this. There will be an edge. This is the edge. And using this edge, the powder can be spread. And this is how the blade, this is how the blade will be mounted over the recoater holder. So different companies um, has their own design of the recoater holder, has their own design of the recoater blade, but mostly the blade looks similar. So recoater can be of blade type, brush type, ceramic, rubber. These all can be mounted in similar type of recoater holder. Okay, but there can be another type of recoater also, which is roller. So these are few types of recoters. So the blade also known as doctor blade. So these are the types of recoater that can be there. Now let's understand what is the difference between these recoters. Then we will to be talking about the material. So from material aspect, either what is ink is not coming. Either we can use polymer or we can use metal. So in metal, we can use any metal like aluminum, copper, stainless steel, titanium, nickel, then their alloys. Okay, like different types of alloys of aluminum, copper, stainless steel, nickel, titanium. Okay, so these are few commonly used metals. And for polymers, there can be polymers with different coatings, polymers mixed with binders, or just the polymer particles with some metal embedded on it. So that there can be various types of polymers as well. And the third one is whether it is SLS or SLM. Now always remember this SLS, SLM, these are few commercially available terms. These terms were coined by commercial companies, so these are not the actual name of the process. It's the direct laser metal sintering, you can call it. You can call it selective laser sintering. So basically you will be using the concept of powder bed fusion, energy source as laser, material as polymer, but you will use the process physics as sintering rather than melting. In melting, we understand what is melting. So we are basically melting the powder particles of metal or polymer. But in case of sintering, we do not melt the powder particles. We sinter them together. Sintering means if this is my one powder and this is my another powder, then they will get sintered together. Melting means both the thing will get melted and they will have this bead. Sintering means they will form something like this. Their property will be intact. Okay, but here their crystal structure, microstructure will be altered because they are just getting melted fully. So this is the difference between sintering and melting. You can call sintering as fusion also. So powder particles are getting fused with each other, glued to each other, not melted. This is the difference. Now, in case of polymers, you have so polymers have very very high melting point, and if you are trying to melt the polymers, then they have different transition temperature. They have their rubber transition, glass transition temperatures, and so melting polymers is quite difficult. And like melting ceramics are quite difficult, melting polymers also quite difficult. They will get burnt easily. So this is why we don't go for melting of polymer. People do use melting in case of ceramic and polymer, but generally people use sintering process to make a component of polymer using powder bed fusion process. So this is from material point of view. And fourth is the overview of works that are going on in research in powder bed fusion. So for that, we have to know the process parameter of powder bed fusion process. So let's first start with the recoating system. I will go to this slide. So I hope this PDF is visible. Your study material given from NPTEL course, right? Okay. Then so in case of powder additive manufacturing, let's go one by one with the picture. So powder based additive manufacturing में आता है first powder bed additive manufacturing where you spread the powder, and उसके बाद आता है powder fed additive manufacturing, for example DD, where powder is fed from the nozzle along with the laser. Now in case of powder bed we can have binder jetting and PBF. Okay. And in case of powder fed, only DD is there. Now, in case of energy beam based powder bed fusion, we can have LPBF, which is laser powder bed fusion. We have EBPBF. And in case of LPBF, we have SLS, we have SLM. Okay. So, as I have already told you this thing. So, next, this is the inception of this process of powder bed fusion. But mostly you can remember that there is a company called EOS. So they basically invented the most of the part of this powder bed fusion process. They were the first company. They used to work with optics and lenses and those things, but later on they collaborated with other people who were working on VAM, and then they tried to build their own setup, and then they coined uh, the process of SLS and then SLM, and then they had their own machine M100, which is a machine which is capable of printing polymers with sintering process. Then they got their machine M280, which is a metal, which is used for metal SLM machine, like selective laser melting. Then they have their most popular machine M290, which we are also having in our lab. We work on that machine. Then they have M400. So M400 is basically used for multi-material purpose. So they are collaborating with other companies to get multi-material printing in PBF. So those are different types of machine. These are M, so used for metals. There are P also, which are useful for polymers. So like that. So now, uh, what I was trying to describe is this picture. So this is the, we call it dispenser. In case of in years, we call it supplier in other company. So every company has their own term for each section. So this is basically the chamber where we pour the powder, this dispenser or supplier, okay? And from the supplier, the recoater is now taking one layer of powder along with it and spreading it over the bed. The bed will go to the downward position. Each step by step, each step is equal to one layer thickness height, which is around 30 micron or 20 micron or 40 micron. And then they make the part. As the part is made inside the powder bed, so if there are some closed chamber, closed component, the closed component will contain powder filled in it. Okay, so this is one disadvantage of using powder bed fusion, but you can avoid that by just changing the design a little bit. So in case of, so if you want to understand the working principle, you have to understand the joining mechanism, the powder material, the scanning system, powder delivery system, powder recoating, build atmosphere, and build platform. So briefly, if I tell you first, then joining mechanism means whether it is getting sintered or melted. Powder material is whether it is polymer or metal. Even if it's polymer, then is it a coated polymer or binder mixed polymer or initiator mixed polymer? What is it? Scanning system means whether you are using mirror based scanning or galvo scanner or 3D scanner or F theta lens. What is the scanning system? Then powder delivery system means which type of which type of recoating system you are using. Like there can be top fitting, there can be bottom fitting. So this is bottom fitting. This uh, chamber is moving up each time with few amount, so that there will be enough powder present over there in front of the recoater, which can get spread over the build plate to have that 30 micron layer thickness. I'm repeating, this chamber will move up each step by certain amount, so that there can be enough powder present in front of the recoater, which can get spread over the build plate to maintain that 30 micron layer thickness. So that is the delivery system. So there can be different types of delivery system also. Now if there is this type of delivery system where the container is present, which is called dispenser or supplier, and now the supplier is moving up each step with each layer, and the ricotta is just spreading the excess powder which has come up. Then you can have different recoters. It can be roller, it can be blade, it can be brush, it can be rubber, it can be ceramic. In metal also, like metallic blade also, you can have HSS, you can have normal stainless steel blade, you can have tool steel blade. Then built atmosphere. So LPPF is a very large machine generally, and it has a lot of component attached to it with it, because okay, I will tell you what are the components which are attached to the LPPF system always, in big commercial companies who are really producing parts for real time use. And then build platform, obviously how the platform is moving, like every time it will move downward, but whether it is moving with lead screw mechanism or by compressed air or by CNC or what is it, okay. So then let's start with the joining mechanism. So joining mechanism is, you can have sintering, you can have liquid phase sintering. So basically liquid phase sintering is having higher temperature than normal sintering. Then you have melting. Liquid sintering, it is written here. So sintering applies enough heat to further bond the particle, but not enough heat to reach the melting point. In case of liquid phase sintering, sintering technique uses liquid phase to accelerate the interparticle bonding of the solid phase. So what happens is, if you are having, where is it? Okay. So you are having the powder, and always remember, metal sintering take metal sintering we do in the conventional die sintering process, but in case of additive manufacturing we generally go for polymer material for sintering process, because it's easy, because here in additive you do not really apply any pressure, so that the powders can get sintered. So it's quite difficult to sinter metal powders in additive, as there is no pressure, but if you can apply pressure in each layer, it's better for metal powders. Anyway, in case of polymer, so the polymer powders, so one thing again, the powders which are to be used for powder bed fusion has to be spherical, always, and generally they have their powder particle size distribution from 15 to 45 micrometer, but it depends on the laser which you are using. It depends on the laser focus spot diameter. So basically the spot diameter where you are working, if the spot diameter is something around 70, 80, 90 or 100, you can go with this 15 to 45 micrometer powder. But if you are working with lesser and laser spot there, something around maybe 20, 30, then you have to go with lesser powder particle size distribution, which can come in the range of nano. So you have to then use nanoparticles for PPF. So always remember, if you are decreasing the size of the powder particles, that means you are increasing the quality of the printing. The accuracy will be increased. The time will be more in that case to make the whole component, but your accuracy will be increased. And if you are using lesser powder particle size distribution, then another important thing is your layer height. You can also decrease the layer height. If you can somehow decrease the layer height, then again you can increase the accuracy of the printing. But at the same time, the time of the printing will increase, so the cost of the printing will also increase. So this is the important thing. So in case of powder material, if you are working with polymer, then the polymer can be coated, okay, or it can be mixed with binder material, which will help the polymer powders to get binded properly, to get fused properly under the process of sintering. So the subsystem of PBF says that the processing, whether it's melting or sintering, so the processing can be indirect, the processing can be direct. Indirect means when you are not directly putting the energy onto your powder, you are basically having the powders with coated uh, material. So you are now giving the energy or putting the energy on the powder bed. So basically, the energy is getting absorbed by the coated or coating material, and the coating materials are getting fused with each other. As the coating material is getting fused, so inside the coating there is the powder particles. So indirectly, the powders will get fused with each other, and the coating material will not get detached from the powder. So that's why all the powders can get attached with each other. But if you are using mixed powder, then again, the energy that you are putting in the powder bed will go directly to the mixing reagent, like the binders. The binders will get softened, and the binders will get fused with each other in such a way that the powder particles can get fused together, like you can see in this picture. So this is the indirect route. You are not putting the energy or the heat energy source to the powders. You are indirectly fusing the powders. You are indirectly sintering the powders. But direct route is you are directly putting the laser beam into the powders. So mixed term is coming under direct route, because it can happen that in case of polymer you are mixing some binder, but other mixing can also take place. So if you are working with metal and you are mixing two metals, then both the metal will get exposed under the laser. They both will react and make the bond between them. So this is one. Pre-alloyed means, so one, let's take one example. So if I'm working on nickel titanium, or I am working on copper nickel. So there are two example. One is nickel titanium, one is nickel copper. So pre-alloyed and mixed, these two are the variation. The nickel and titanium can be mixed together. The nickel and copper can be mixed together, just like mechanical mixing. So in the mixed powder, if this is the mixed powder and you are having this powder particles in the mixed powder, this is your container. So this field powders are the nickel powders, and the hollow powders are the titanium powders. For the timing, you assume. So basically, you can see you have mechanically mixed the powders, but physically the powders are not mixed. But when we will use this powder under the exposure of laser, obviously all the powder particles will absorb the laser. So the powders will get fused together and you will get a very nice uniform mixing. But these are mechanically mixed as a raw material. But pre-alloyed means if this is your powder container now and you are having powder, all these powders will have nickel and titanium both together. Yes, these are pre-alloyed. Pre-alloyed means first the titanium was melted and then the nickel was melted. Both of them were poured at the same casted at the casting mold, and both were mixed together, okay, nicely and uniformly, and then they were solidified. And after solidification, the powders were made by plasma atomization or gas atomization. So now the powder particles that you are having is having nickel and titanium both. So they are pre-alloyed. They are alloyed. Alloying means mixing uh, more materials, and pre-alloyed means before making the powder, the materials were mixed. And polymer or wax. So direct route can also be useful for polymer. So it's not like every time you are mixing some binder or putting some coating on the polymer, you can directly put the polymer powder in it. The laser will directly go to the polymer powder, it will hit the powder, it will soften the powder, and the powders will get fused like this together, so that at the end you'll get a bond like this. Okay. And metal, obviously metals are used with the direct route. So the next is the polymer material for indirect route. So one I have seen, I have told you that the coated powder. So coated powder means you're going for some coating. So if this is your powder, I cannot use, okay, and now you have a coating around it. So orange is my powder and blue is my coating. So now when you are giving the heat, this coating will get softened up and they will mix with each other and make an interfacial bonding with each other. Now the powders are present inside the coating. So if the coating is getting fused with the neighbor coating, means the powder is also indirectly getting fused with the neighbor powder. Although the powders are not touching each other, but they are getting fused because the coating is not going to get off the from the powder. So this is why you go for the indirect route of coated powder, and this is what written here. So you can uh, read it later. So one important point is that the melting temperature of the coated material should be very very lesser than the polymer melting temperature, and the laser power or energy density should be enough to melt or to soften the coating material. Next, another method for powder for indirect route is the mixing. So when you mix two powders, so or when you mix the powder with the binder, you soften the binder by putting the laser beam onto it, as the melting point of the binder will be very very less than the melting point of the powder, and you're putting the laser energy in such a manner that the only binder will get softened, not the metal. So now the binders will nicely bond all the powders together. Basically it is working like a glue. So there are some ping pong balls, okay, in a bucket. Just imagine there is there are a lot of balls in a bucket. Cricket ball, golf ball, then baseball, then ping pong ball, different types of ball. Why I'm saying different ball? Because all these balls will have different sizes. Okay, then you have put a glue. So there is polyvinyl alcohol is a type of glue, or yeah, gum type of adhesive, which comes in solid form, which looks like spherical balls but smaller. So now you have put that solid glue balls inside it. So now if I draw the glue balls, so these are the glue balls, okay, inside it. And those are also solid balls. Nicely mixed with the powder. And here also I'm drawing a 2D drawing, but in real it is 3D. So now you have put the laser. So laser will attack all the powder present over there, but as the melting point of this blue powders are much higher than yellow, so the yellow powders will get heated up, will get softened, and they can now bond. these powders together. Wherever they are sitting, if they are getting melted there, they can bond three powders together like this. Okay. So now the powders present over the build plate is now fixed. The hollow space is now filled with the binder with its adhesive nature, with its binding property, and now you have a nice solid part. So this is how the mixing works. So you can't call it as a green part because this can have some moisture, but after the laser consolidation, mostly the moisture is gone. So then it is called as a green part, and after that, the green part will not have that higher strength. So then you can go for some heat treatment process, some post processing, where you can put this sample under the furnace so that the glue and along with the powders can get hardened, their bond can get hardened up. And also, there is another technique where they put a special type of glue or gel or liquid onto the part, and then they put it over the furnace so that that liquid get hardened up very much high and makes the part green, like at moisture free, and sorry, not green, but it makes the part with higher strength. So this is one technique of increase the strength or and make the part more strong. So this is one thing. Then you have this EOS Int S. So this is the EOS company that I was talking about. They made this type of indirect route of material deposition in case of laser powder bed fusion process. So this is what I was trying to show you. So these binders are nylon and the powders are ceramic powders, and the binders are nicely uh, engulfing kind of the ceramic powder here in this picture. And after the sintering, everything is joined nicely. And in case of binder, the binder can be epoxy resin, so obviously they will get melted and they can make a nice uniform joint between the powders. So these are the indirect route of material sintering under the exposure of laser. So until this point, if you are clear, you can tell me yes or no. Are you clear about what I have discussed right now? I think it's clear. So as you don't have any doubts, so let's now go to the next portion. So this is the another subsection which says the direct route. So direct route is like if you're going with metal, obviously metal will have very high melting point. So in that case, you have to put a lot of laser energy onto the build plate. So this is the scenario. So where you are putting these are the powder particles and you are putting direct laser. All this will get melted and make the bead over the build plate. This is just selective laser melting. There can be selective laser sintering as well, where there will be powder, and this time no coating, no binder will be present. The laser will come directly to the atoms. The atoms will get softened up, so they are they can reach their recrystallization temperature. They can go beyond the recrystallization temperature, but always below the melting temperature, so they can get softened up and they can make bond like this. They can get joined. So generally, the sintering process includes the pressure in it. So there are conventional sintering machine which uses pressure. So you have to center each layer with applying pressure, because it is believed that no atom can get centered together without an external force, because here the external heat source that you are providing is very less, it's very minimum. So that's why it is believed that without pressure it cannot be done, but additive manufacturing has shown its exception. It can be done even without pressure. So that this is why the polymer powders are more useful in case of sintering process. So now the direct route and indirect route is understood, I feel, right? Okay, now let's move on to the next topic. The next subsystem is the scanning system. So I have told you that there can be Galvo scanner, there can be flying optics, there can be 3D scanner like 3D scanning mirrors, there can be F theta lens and Galvo scanner setup. There can be mask which is useful in case of binder jetting. Sorry, not binder jetting, material jetting, or even binder jetting also, or mostly useful in case of wet photopolymerization. Under wet photopolymerization, there is one method classification which is known as deposition, that masking is done, which is digital light processing (DPL). So in that case, masking is useful, but in case of PBF, masking is not useful. People will not go for masking. Whether you have to make a mask, put it on the sample, and according to that you deposit the material, it is so time consuming. Already LPBF works with 20, 30, 40 layer thickness, like these are in micron. So 20 micron, 30 micron, 100 micron layer thickness. It doesn't hold any further meaning of uh, doing it with it. So Galvo scanner is very much useful. So Galvo scanner is the arrangement uh, that we have seen in case of wet photopolymerization also. Masking is not useful and flying optics is useful. So basically flying optics will have the arrangement of F theta lens and Galvo scanner all together. Okay. Uh, Not flying optics. So Galvo scanner is useful to move the laser beam onto the platform very rapidly. Remember, Galvo scanner is useful. Galvo scanner is an arrangement of teeny small tiny laser lenses or mirrors which vibrates very quickly to move the laser beam very rapidly over the build plate, because the laser scanning speed in case of LPBF is something around 600, 1000 or 1400, 1500 millimeter per second. So you cannot even distinguish the laser beam with your naked eye while going on the process. So Galvo scanner is capable of moving the laser beam that uh, rapidly onto the build plate, while F theta lens is used to make the laser focused onto the build plate. Because if the build plate is 250 by 250 like this, and if your laser beam is coming from the top, it is focused, but when it will move to this position, it is not focused. It is having much bigger length, and when it is moving to this position, even this is not focused, even this is not focused. So this should not be the case. This should be like, this is focus, this is the build chamber, so this is focused, this is also focused, 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 focused. Wherever the beam is going inside the build chamber, everywhere the laser should be focused. In that case, F theta lens is useful. So the arrangement or the combination of F theta lens and galvo scanner is very popular in case of powder bed fusion process or laser powder bed fusion process. In case of laser only, this galvo scanner and F theta lens is useful. For any other heat source, this setup is not useful. So then, when where is it? Flying optics. So in flying optics, what happens is there can be multiple lenses over here. This is one lens, this is another lens, this is another lens. Okay. So this lens is suppose galvo scanner, which is capable of moving the laser beam very frequently or very rapidly over the build plate. But this lens can move up and down. So if this is moving up, then your focus spot will be at this position. If this is moving down here, then your focus spot will be at this position. So now if you are making something in the build plate, so to move the laser beam from point A to from point B, the that middle lens, which is this dynamic focusing module lens, has to move in between. So not the lens moves, but the whole system inside, it moves very rapidly. It is capable of moving very rapidly, so there are arrangement of lenses and mirrors. So this is why this is called as flying optics. So there can be multiple arrangement of lenses which are capable of moving very fast in the up and down motion, and this is how you maintain the focusing of the lens of the laser throughout the build chamber, throughout the build plate, more specifically. So now powder delivery. So as I have said, you powder delivery can be in two ways. One is top feeding, one is bottom feeding. So top feeding means from basically this is the container. So this container will move up with each layer, and enough amount of powder will be then present in front of the recruiter, by spreading which one layer thickness can be achieved on the build plate, or one layer thickness or 30 micron thickness layer can be spread over the build plate if your layer thickness is 30 micron. Otherwise it can be 20 micron or 40 micron. So this, and bottom feeding means, so the name suggests opposite. So don't go by the name, just try to remember the process, how it works. So this bottom feeding means there will be a recoater. There is the powder hopper. Okay. You have to just pour the powder in this powder hopper. And there is a recoater. The recoater will move to spread the powder. When the recoater is at position A, the powders come to the recoater. Enough amount of powder, only that much powder which will be spreaded over the bill plate and which can result in 30 micron layer thickness. Then the recoater will move, come to this position. The laser will come, consolidate one layer of powder. Then again from this powder hopper, some more powder will come. The recoater will spread it over the build plate of 30 micron layer thickness. Again, the laser will come, consolidate the powder. Again, now the recoater is in this position, so this powder hopper will be activated and the powder will come from powder hopper A, if it's A and it's B. So this is how the recoater moves, and every time the recoater has a chamber for the powder hopper which will get attached to each other when it reaches at that position, and the powder will be fed from the hopper to the recoater itself. And the recoater will have teeny slots, means very small holes, slots in it, through which the powder will come uniformly. Then there is top feeding and bottom feeding. Now we know how the feeding system can work. Now, how the decoder will work, already I have told you. One is roller, one is blade. So, in blade, so this is the blade, roller, slot feeder, and electrostatic. So, one by one. In blade, it is just a blade like this. Okay. So that from this edge, the powder will be spread. Okay. So this blade can be of metal like HSS, tool steel, or stainless steel. This blade can be of ceramic with a harder coating in its blade portion. It can be of rubber blades, not like this, but flat rubber blades. So just a piece of rubber which is elongated and attached to the decoder holder. The blade can be replaced by brushes. So there can be instead of this blade, there can be brush. So the brush will have this thing in it. Okay. But it's not very much large. It's so small. The brush portion is so small that it is capable of spreading the powder uniformly. And from my past experience, brush recorders are better than blade recorders, because in the time, at the time of printing, now something can happen, like your part can get distorted because of high heat input or low heat input by the laser. So sometimes you go for the process parameter optimization, where you have to print multiple samples like 50 or 100 samples with different process parameter. Some process parameter will result in defects that we purposefully do so that we can see at what parameter the defects are coming. So now if your part is having defect, so this is your build plate, and over the build plate the parts are kept, and now this recoater is spreading the powder. Now sometimes it may happen that there is warping in the part, there is defect, and the part is now looking like this instead of this. Instead of A, the part is looking like B. So there is an extruded portion over it. When the blade moves over it to spread the powder, the blade gets ruptured by the edges of the printed part because of the process parameter optimization thing, and you can easily erode out your metal blades. And even if you are using HSS blade, which are very much hard, ceramic blades which are harder, you will get rupture very easily in your blade, and that ruptured blade cannot be reused because it will not be able to spread powder then uniformly over the build blade. And also at the time of printing, if your blade material is getting ruptured, then that small eroded part from your blade material may get mixed with your printed material, and you will have impurity in your printing. So this is also not acceptable. So instead of that, if you are using brush, then brush will not get eroded out because brush is soft. But brush is the brush part, that this teeth part. If this is the brush holder, and in that the brush is coming, the strands of the brush. Now this strand is so small, like this portion is so small that you'll not get erosion in the blade. One, two brush strands may get detached from it while printing, but it's also not very regular or common. So that's why I feel brush is better than blade. And then we have roller. So roller can move in this direction one and can move in this direction two. If it's moving in one direction, so it is basically pressing the powder and spreading it. So your powder layer compaction will be better in case of one. In case of two, it is just spreading the powder by moving forward, so that in this case the spreading will be better, but there will be no compaction in the layer because there is literally no pressure on the layer. So this is the role of a roller. Then we have slot feeder. So slot feeder is useful for this case when you are applying, when you're supplying the powder with the powder hopper, you have to have a slot feeder. Means your blade will have a very tiny slot in it. So at this edge you will have a slot like this, and this slot thickness will be something around 10 micron maybe, or 50 micron, this much, like hair one human hair similar slot dimension, slot thickness. Okay, so this much opening will be there from which the powders can come. So the powder is poured to the ricotta from the top, from the top hopper, and then the powder will get released from the slot cutter slot of the blade, which is placed below the blade, and then your powder will be spread. So this is the third type, and fourth type is the electrostatic powder, electrostatic recoater. What happens in electrostatic recoater is sometimes your recoater will look like this. There will be a roller. The roller will move in one direction and move in one direction. Now your roller will have electrostatically charged inside its body. Like this is one pattern, okay, your roller is having. So basically, this is your top view of the powder bed. If you are printing a part with, this is stainless steel, this is copper, this is copper. So this is stainless steel, this is copper, this is stainless steel, this is copper, this is stainless steel, this is copper. So now you understand this is a kind of chessboard pattern that you are making with different material, two metals. So if you are making your recorder blade as a roller, and that also the roller body is having electrostatically charged particle. So this electrostatic, now this portion is electrostatically charged. Now the electrostatically charged portion will only attract the copper powder, and that time only copper will be spread. So first, in first go, the copper will be spread in these positions, and then the laser will come and consolidate the powder on it. And on the next run, the stainless steel part, so these parts, okay, this white parts will get electrostatically charged by other type of charging with other values, and now it will only attract the stainless steel. So the stainless steel is getting attached with the roller, and when now the roller is rolling over the bill plate, it will spread the powder on these white parts, and then the laser will consolidate the white parts. So this is how you can really print multimaterial with the help of this type of electrostatically charged roller type of recorder. So there is one company called Aeroscent. They produce this type of electrostatically charged rollers, which multiple powder bed fusion companies uh, buy and install in their machine. For example, Aconity is a company who buy the Aeroscent recorder. They attach the recorder in their machine, and then they can print multi-material in their own machine. But for example, EOS has its own design for each part. EOS is not capable of putting the Aeroscent multi-material feeding system, multi-material recoating system in its machine. So they take help from other company to spread multi-material, to print multi-material in their own machine. These are different things, but just for general knowledge purpose, I have told you. So these are few important topics and few important points about the powder decoding system. So here you can see it is showing that electrostatically charged how they do it. Then built atmosphere. So our next subsection was built atmosphere. So built atmosphere is mostly inert. It can be vacuum and can be open as well. But we generally don't go for open system, because open system will be then useful for research purpose. Like if you want to add multiple camera focus to the build plate so that you can see what is going on in the melt pool while the laser is moving, you can use open system. If you want to put a lot of sensors in it just for your research purpose, you can use it. But for actual scenario, we people go for the inert one, because in case of vacuum, it's very difficult to produce vacuum in a large chamber where you have to have a container being for collector. You have a container for the powder, to store the powder. You have a bill plate, you have a recording system, and making vacuum there is a quite difficult task. And also, if you are going for vacuum chamber, you cannot make a large chamber vacuumed. So that's why you have to go with smaller chamber. And if you're going with smaller chamber, your build volume is getting decreased. If your build volume is getting decreased, means you will be able to produce smaller parts instead of bigger parts. So if somebody is wanting to make an aerospace part or marine drive part in a PBF, then these vacuum based systems will not be effective. But again, as they are vacuum, so it's less chance of oxidation, less chance of other gas particles to interact in the melt pool. Good but costly and time taking, and not that cost effective. But at the same time, in case of inert chamber, if you are using inert chamber, means you will have this chamber where you are having one bill plate, one supplier where you pour the powder. This is the bill plate onto which the ricotta will move and spread one layer of powder. And this is the collector where excess powder comes. And then you have to have a filter system. So the most uncommon thing about PBF is PVF content of filter system, which is not there in other type of additive manufacturing process. Why? Because the laser processing speed in case of PVF is very high. So the laser moves very rapidly over the bill plate. As the laser moves very rapidly, and as the laser is consolidating very few micron layers, so the time taken by PBS is much higher. And when you are depositing something with that high speed, you have to have a controlled atmosphere. Otherwise, if you are doing it in open air, your oxygen present in open air will come interact with the process and get you will get oxide layer on each layer. Your part is damaged. Okay, this is of no use. And then if you are doing it in open atmosphere, then there is no shielding in your molten pool. In DD, as DD setups are way too bigger, I have talked about it already, that DD has a shrouding gas which maintains the shape of the building process. But in case of LPBF, it's different. We go for closed chambers where we flow inert gas like gram per second or gram per minute flow rate, and then you have a closed chamber with maintained inert gas flow, then your oxygen percentage get lower and lower. So after sometimes at the time of printing you'll have 0% of less than 10% oxygen present inside the chamber, which is recommended, so there is no chance of oxidation. And the powders are getting spread, and then the powders are getting consolated with the laser beam with a very high speed. So obviously lot of fumes get generated inside the chamber. Now you have to flow the argon gas or you have to flow nitrogen gas, so it depends which type of inert gas you are using. So for example, you are flowing the argon gas. Argon is very costly. Now if your printing is taking 72 hours, which is almost equal to 3 days, and for 3 days your printing has to has a maintained or controlled atmosphere inside the chamber. So for 3 days you have to make sure that there is proper flow of argon. Then you will end up buying million tons of argon gas, which will cost you $1 million. Okay, so instead of that, what we do, we go for the filter system. So if this is our chamber, there will be few slots through which the argon gas comes, and there will be slot through which the argon gas goes outside the machine chamber. So the argon gas which is coming is a pure argon, fresh, pure argon, clean argon. The argon gas which is going outside the is a dirty argon gas which is mixed with the flying powder particles and fumes, burning fumes. Burning, why burning? So laser is interacting with the powder, so obviously there will be a lot of fumes generated. The laser is melting the petal, so this argon gas is mixed with the fumes. So the argon which is going outside, they don't go outside. There will be a pipe, multiple pipes maybe, they will come to a filter system. These are some paper filters. There will be fine filter, there will be coarse filter. So first they go to a coarse filter. Okay, and then they go to the fine filter. Okay, and after two filter system, when they come out, there is again clean argon. So this is how, if you are now using one bottle of argon gas, you can use it for multiple times. You can use it for longer time. Maybe 3 days of printing will now take 3 bottle of argon. Okay, but previously, if you are not having this type of filter system, each time you have to flow new argon and flow out the dirty argon gas mixed with the fumes, and You don't have anything to reuse. So that's why PBF systems do use filter system, which is useful to reuse the argon and filter out the fumes, powder particles, dirts, and burn particles. And then you can resupply the argon again after cleaning, and that resupplied argon will be cleaned again. And this is how you maintain the flow rate, you maintain the process chamber, you control the atmosphere inside the melt pool region. So this is the built atmosphere. You use argon or nitrogen according to your material. Then build platform. So build platform is the area where we deposit the material. So build platform preheating is one thing that you should go for, because preheating will reduce the residual stress in your part. If you want to know more about it, you can ask me after the class. And then you can go for some pre-processing of the build plate. So first we grind the build plate so that the build plate will be flat, completely flat. We can accept plus minus 10 micron surface roughness over the build platform, or plus minus 10 micron, um, what should I say, flatness. Okay. uh, so that much error we can sustain, not more than that, because our layer thickness is 30 micron. That's why sometimes we go for short blasting of the build plate to make it, to give it a matte finish, because if it is having mirror like finish, the beam will get reflected back from the build plate and it will not get absorbed. So that's why we short blast the build plate to make it, to give it a matte finish, so that the absorptivity of laser will increase. These are some pre-processing we do after attaching the build plate inside the chamber. We also level the build platform, level the recoater blade with the help of build platform. So basically, we level build platform and recoater blade together so that they can have flat surface between each other and can maintain 30 micron for each layer. So now we know these things, joining mechanism. So all the things we have already discussed. Now the subsystem that I'm going to discuss is about different companies. So there can be one machine which will be able to produce polymer with sintering. Galvo scanner will be used, and bottom feeding, roller mechanism, and open atmosphere. There can be another powder bed where polymer will be used for sintering, galvo scanner with bottom feeding, but blade is used with the slot cutter and open atmosphere. Then there can be sintering of the coated material with the help of galvo scanner, bottom feeding, blade, and open atmosphere. So this was one video. So you can get good videos in the lecture video in the NPTEL site. There you will see nice video of the powder bed fusion process. You can get any good video of powder bed fusion process in YouTube as well. You will better understand the process then. So you can have machine where you will go for the coated powder sintering with the help of flying optics, with bottom feeding with slot feeder, and then open environment. So sintering of coated material with mask, which is completely uncommon. So masking technology will not be that popular, and people really do not use masking technology for PVF this day. So before there were some machines, and then you can go for liquid phase sintering of mixed powders with binders mixed in it. Then liquid phase with bottom fitting and roller or blade. And then you can go for metal printing with the technique of melting, galvo scanner, top fitting, blade, and inert gas. So melting you'll find mostly with inert gas, because metals are more um, more likely to have oxidized and affected by the gases present in atmosphere, better are more prone to entrap moisture from the air, which will deteriorate the property and quality of the printing. But polymer doesn't have um, that behavior. Like polymers are not prone to get moisture trapped easily or get oxidized easily, so that's why they can be operated in open environment. Because if you are going for open environment which can be worked for polymer, then go for it, your money will be saved. But in case of metal, you cannot go for open environment. So that's why these are mostly inert gas based, whether you are using bottom feeding or galvo scanner or blade or roller or slot feeder or electrostatic, you have to go for inert or vacuum. But most of the machines use inert to save the money, but there can be vacuum systems as well, along with the flying optics. This is the inside of the machine, and I'm not sure, but I feel this is from EOS company. I'm not sure, but I feel. Then pre-processing, build process, and post-processing. In pre-processing, we pour the powder. We do ramming in the powder. Ramming means a process I cannot describe you here, because it's something that we do, but the result is we do ramming to get rid of the air bubble inside the powder. So when you're pouring bulk amount of powder inside the chamber, you can have air entrapped inside the powder particles, like inside the bulk. So that's why we do ramming, so that we can get better density compaction of the powder particles. In pre-processing, we make the bill plate flat by grinding it, shot blasting it. We make the blade clean and flat. Clean, basically. We make sure there is no erosion in the blade is proper, smooth. We mount the blade to the recoating holder. We level the bill plate with the blade, so that the gap between the bill plate and the blade is uniform. In case of pre-processing, we also clean the machine, we start the argon gas, we preheat the bill plate. There is many ways to preheat the bill plate, but I'm not going into that. If you want to know, I can tell you. In building process, we start the process, we have the cat file, we'll make it STL, we slice it, we put it in the machine specific software, we place it, we define the process parameter, we start the process. In post processing, first we remove the powder from the build plate, because after the printing, you will have the part which is completely present inside the powders. So you have to first remove the powder from the build platform. You have to take safety precautions, because if you are working with metal or ceramic, these are carcinogenic. So that's why you have to have safety wearing. So then you have to clean the powder, then you have to cut the sample from the bill plate. Sometimes we go for heat treatment and then cut it, but if your parts are small, you can directly cut it with bandsaw, hacksaw, or wire cut EDM process. Depends how much big your part is, how much integrate your part is. And if your part is very big, it's recommended to go for heat treatment first and then cut the part. Because if your part is very big, like the surface area which is connected to the build plate is very big, large, then the amount of residual stress will be very high. So that is why it's recommended to go for heat treatment first and then uh, um, make the part. So then you
go for the, what do you call it, cutting and then polishing and see what are the microstructure, and then you go for the post processing that you want to do. So in case of laser beam powder based additive manufacturing, these are the component in LPBF system, and this is what is there in the lectures of week 11. So now I can share the previous year question. So the following figure 1 shows the replacement of a few components on the build platform of powder-based selective laser melting machine. Select the correct method for part fabrication to avoid collision between the recorder blade and the part. The orientation 2 and 4 is correct, because if you are printing with 2 and 4, then you can avoid touching your build plate, your recorder blade sharp edge with the sharp edge of the printed part. So to avoid the collision, we first tilt every part, and we don't place the part of exactly one beside another. We put the part in such a way that there is no part coming in this portion and this portion of any one part. So that's why it has been placed like this. Next, in the context of hybrid recoating system in powder-based additive manufacturing, Dr. Blaze is used to spread the powder on a large area, followed by forward coating roller to compact the spreading of the powder layer. An open environment type built atmosphere in powder based additive manufacturing is generally preferable for processing of polymers because no protection against oxidation is required. I have already discussed in case of metal, you have the, like, metal has the tendency to trap the moisture from the air. It has the tendency to trap, like, in the presence of nitrogen, your formation of austenitic state in stainless steel can get increased, and which can result in poor quality, which is not required, which is not desired in your part, in your component. So that's why it's important to choose the inert gas first in case of metal. And open environment, obviously we cannot go for open environment, but these things are not present in case of polymer. You don't have any tendency, you don't have any chance to get water entrapment or the oxidation. So that's why you can go for open environment. In the recoating system for powder bed additive manufacturing, so counter rotating type of roller is used for achieving good powder flowability, but forward rotating is used for powder compaction. Forward means this thing. So it will get pressed inside this, and counter means this thing. So here if the powders are present, so they will get flowed very nicely over the bill plate and spread over it, over the bill plate. Select the incorrect statement made in the context of support structure of powder. So support structures do not restrict part warpage. They restrict the part warpage. They are used for supporting overhang features only. No, they restrict the part warpage, and support structures I have already discussed. Support structures do are new needful or are useful to dissipate the heat to the build platform. So it is very important to dissipate the heat to the build platform. This is why these are beneficial to restrict the part warpage. Support is required to prevent the part warpage. Yes, parts in selective laser melting can warp due to high thermal gradients. So exactly this is why you need the heat dissipation technique. For sintering coated ceramic powders, loose powder particles act as support structure. So yes, in case of polymer sintering, we don't go for support structure because the sintered powders act as a support structure. So this is one big advantage of using sintering over melting, but the compaction in sintering is not that good. So obviously it's better to go for melting. In the context of scanning system for powder-based additive manufacturing, beam correction in active optics is generally achieved by dynamic focusing module. So scanning system में आता है, first is the galvo scanner which uses or which takes the help of f theta lens. उसके बाद आता है flying optics, in which we take the arrangement of lenses where you put different lenses one after another, and in between the process it's known as active optics, because in between the process if we are moving the laser beam from one corner to the other corner of the build plate, the laser beam can move and still it will have its focus. So basically, as there is no there is no f theta lens which will compensate it. There is active optics, so means there will be the arrangement of lenses which will move inside the head and give us the focus spot in throughout the build plate, whole build volume. Select the incorrect statement made in the context of active optics for scanning system in powder bed waste additive manufacturing. So DFM cannot be used for the flat fill correction in the scanning system. No. Active optics uses dynamic focusing. Yes, it is obviously true. DFM can vary the dynamic focusing module. Focal point of the laser beam, yes, in the vertical direction. And DFM uses motorized focusing optics, yes. So in the okay, so as DFM uses the focal point correction in the vertical direction, so it cannot be used for flat fill correction is not correct, because it can be used for the flat fill correction. Because if I am having flat fill connection, means in the xy direction I have the f theta lens or telecentric lens which will correct the beam, which will result in the focus from one corner to the other end corner of the build plate. Then in the z direction also, in the z direction, the the telecentric cannot do that, or the f theta cannot do that. So in the z direction I will go for the dynamic focusing module, which can now make the focus also in the make focus at different position over the z axis also. So this is having more degrees of freedom basically. So in the context of discussed scanning system for powder based additive manufacturing, so flying optics type of scanning system is used by Zact Metal. Company based, you have to remember it. Which of the following is not a joining mechanism in case of powder bed additive manufacturing? So photopolymerization is used for liquid photoactive resin, if you can remember, where we use vat photopolymerization, where will be a vat full of liquid resin, and liquid resins are photoactive material. Basically, if you are exposing the resin in a particular wavelength laser light, they get activated, their monomers get activated. In the monomers there are initiator, photo initiator. They start vibrating, they transfer the energy, they expand their bond, monomers get attached with a long chain, they make the polymer, which is known as polymerization, as it is taking place in the presence of photo. Photo means light, which is laser light or UV light. We call it photopolymerization. So obviously, metals cannot be used in this, and polymer powders cannot be used in it. Only polymer liquid wo bhi thermoset resin liquid can be used. So sintering, liquid phase sintering, melting are the options for powder bed fusion, but not the photopolymerization. Which joining mechanism of powder bed based additive manufacturing applies heat to increase the temperature of the structural powder above the melting point? Which of the joining mechanism of powder bed based additive manufacturing applies heat to increase the temperature of the cell? Okay, so obviously, melting, because melting will take more heat. You have to go till the melting point of the metal. So if this is a temperature range, so this will be a temperature until which you can heat the metal but not sinter. Until this range you can sinter it. Until this range you can liquid sinter it. Until this range you can recrystallize it. And this is the highest point till which you, if you go, you can melt it. So obviously this is melting, and melting will take more heat content, so the laser power has to be more in case of melting. So that's why heat is more, temperature is more. The density of the part produced will be maximum in case of which joining mechanism? Obviously, as I have said, melting, because sintering means we are fusing the powder. So just for an example, if this is one layer of powder, you are fusing it together, and this is our next layer of powder. So now the red portion na which I'm drawing are the porosities. These porosities will always be there because of the sintering, because they are not melting. If they are melting, the metal is now liquid, they can flow and feel the space. But here the powders are not melting, the powders are solid particles. So how they will feel the whole void? And if they are not capable of feeling the whole void, after sintering also the void will not be filled. The voids will be present, which will result in porosity. So that's why density of the melted parts, SLM, is more. SLM results in more density rather than SLS. So, in which route the material processing does the laser beam melts and sinters powder? So, particles of the desirable material on the powder bed itself. Direct route. In case of indirect route, whether we are putting the laser on the coating over the metal powder or polymer powder, basically polymer powder, or we are putting the laser on the powder bed, but the binders are only absorbing the laser. Select the incorrect statement made in the context of balling effect uh, in powder best. So always remember, balling effects are the result of low power density. Sometimes when you put very high power, but the power density or energy density is still low, because of your high scanning speed, you get the balling defects. So balling leads to continuous and smooth track deposition. Obviously not, because these are defects. You will get nice balls over the track instead of a continuous melted track or bead. Balling defects arises from the limited liquid formation with no centric necks. Yes. Balling defect leads to discontinuous track deposition. Yes. Low temperature of the laser beam can lead to balling defects. Yes. while printing multiple parts on the same build platform. Placing these parts in a side by side manner should be avoided because to prevent the defect propagation from one part to another. So, if this is your build platform, we also obey this rule while printing. First, in case of instead of putting the part like this, we put the part like this to avoid any interaction between the blade and the part sharp edges, so that blade cannot be, we shouldn't rupture the blade at the time of printing. I've already told you the reason. And if you're putting the part like this is the part path, and no other part should come in the path of this part. Okay. Always another thing that I want to add is, remember that if you are printing something for process parameter optimization, so there will be a time when there will be some parts which will not get printed because of their bad process parameter. Because obviously you're optimizing the parameter. Now, if you know these are good parameters, then what is the point of doing optimization? So at the optimization, more specifically, do not put part like this. Do not put part like one after another. Always put part like this. Because if this part, suppose this part is going very good, okay, good part, one is good, but the second, this part is not going good, this is bad. Now, if you have placed part, suppose this is one, this is 2 is bad. So when 2 is bad, when the recorder blade will move in this direction, maybe it is not connected to the build plate properly because of the bad process parameter. It will get ruptured from the build plate, and now it will damage the good part, which is 1. So if you have placed the part 1 here, then even if this part is ruptured, it will go in this direction, and in between the process you can just turn the part 2 off, so that from next layer onwards the part 2 will not be made. We have stopped printing part 2. The other parts we can make with that, we can continue the process for the rest of the parts, and at that time all other parts will be we can manage to protect all other parts by just stopping one part. But if you place one part after each other, you you can stop the part, but in between, like before you notice, before you stop that bad part can rupture the recorder blade at that point. If it is um, eroding the recorder blade, then the blade will not be able to spread the powder uniformly. The result will affect will have a bad effect and produce defect in all other good parts. So this is why it's very important to place the parts over the build plate with some strategy. So next question is, for the indirect sintering, the green part is often infiltrated by the secondary material to achieve high part density, high part strength, fill the pores created by the binder evaporation. Select the incorrect statement made in the context of green parts obtained from indirect selective laser sintering. Green parts are often of low density, so these are nearly isotropic. These are free from internal stresses because you are going for sintering, so there is no point of residual stress on all. Producing the green parts generally do not require any support mechanism because you are going for sintering, and in sintering the sintered powder particles itself act as a heat dissipation sink. You can dissipate the heat nicely because also you are putting very less heat energy, and the powders are fused so they can even support the overhang portion. For the case of next question, for the case of sintering nickel's tin powder feedstock, nickel acts as a structural material and tin acts as a binder material. So the passive optics in the powder-based additive manufacturing uses F theta lens for beam correction. Question number 19 is in slot feeder mechanism for recoating system, the powder reservoir travels with the recoater blade to spread the powder layer to print bed. And question number 20 is which one of the following is not desirable for substrate in powder bed additive manufacturing? Substrate should form a brittle interface within first layer of the part. No, it is not desirable. If it's brittle, then you cannot print the later on layers onto it smoothly. So it can damage the subsequent layers. The substrate should form a bond with the first layer. Yes. The substrate should be of same material composition. Yes. To avoid any contradictory heat dissipation, so that thermal conductivity of the printed part of the printed material and the print bed or powder bed or build plate should be same. So this is the logic why we go for same compositional part for print material and substrate. Part delamination from the substrate should be avoided during printing. Obviously, this is also the effect of choosing different heat conductivity materials. So that's why also we go for material with same heat conductivity as a printing material and build print material. So not to waste much brainstorming, we just go for same compositional plate. And when our printing material is very costly and you cannot have another build plate with that same material because build plate has to be large and thick. So that time we search for other materials which are less costly but will have same heat dissipation, heat conductivity, and heat diffusion property. So thank you for attending. And if you are someone watching the lecture in YouTube, thank you. If you have any doubt, you can ask me in the comment section. You can mail me anyway. And this was our last second last lecture. The next class will be our last lecture. I hope all your doubts regarding this course will be completed by that time. Thank you. Good night.